Okay, guys, it is Wednesday. It's time for On the Clock. A great day yesterday on this show with the NIT stuff. I guess I didn't commit to every single one, but I would say like 5 and 2 is probably accurate. The important thing is that the two that I really talked about as potential client plays, one became a client play and cashed easily with Kent State. My only play yesterday, 4% winner, and then Jacksonville State just crushed Georgia Tech. Those two were never close. Arkansas State got there. Santa Clara with the blowout, as I expected might happen. Stanford covers the number. And then the ones I suppose we didn't get right would have been Wichita State failed to cover. And then Chattanooga did play without champion. So that was the triple overtime game that they ended up on the wrong side of. So we'll call it 5 and 2 for the show. But the important one was the client play, which I ended up giving out for free on the website anyway. So only play from yesterday is a winner. That's now 6-1. And today I have a 5% max bet, my first one of the NCAA tournament, in one of the two first four games. So we're not going to talk about first four at all. If you're looking for my take on the first four, I have a big play in one of those two games, and that is up at WagerTalk right now, 5% play. So head on over there and grab that. And I will spend the next 13 and a half minutes rattling through the 9 NIT games tonight. And I'm going to give out any plays that I have, which as of right now, I do have one. So I'll start with the game that I played, and we'll go from there. So we're going to start out in Peoria, Illinois for Bradley and North Alabama. I took North Alabama 4.5 as a 3% play a few days ago. When I got wind that Bradley was going to be without Darius Hannah and Zach Montgomery for this tournament. So without really handicapping it at all, that was one of those ones where I just kind of said, okay, those two guys out for Bradley, definitely going to matter, definitely going to move the number. I'm just going to grab this at 4.5, and then I'll sort of figure out what I want to do with this. Well, it's actually back to 4.5. This went all the way down to 2.5. Now it's back up to 4.5. It looks like Darius Hannah is going to play. I haven't heard if Montgomery's going to play at all or not, but I guess Hannah had a change of heart. So really the situation here is I think the fan base started to get on these two a little bit, saying, hey, like, what's the deal? You're kind of quitting on the team. I was reading some stuff on Twitter, and it sounds like they like guilted Hannah into playing. I do still think Bradley uses this as an opportunity to play some younger guys. I would not be surprised if Montgomery remains out. And that's the bigger. So for me, the bigger of those two in this matchup is Montgomery, because North Alabama really plays through their guards. Like that's the main redeeming quality of this North Alabama team is the guard play. Jakari Lane, Daniel Ortiz, stud guards that have really, I think, can go against this Bradley backcourt. And now you're talking about Bradley not having Montgomery, which is a key component of that backcourt. So I'm going to ride this out. I didn't hedge off of it. I just decided I was going to ride this out at 4.5 for a 3% play. I don't think I'll add to it. I don't think I'll increase it. You can right now. It's back to 4.5. But this North Alabama falls into the same category for me as like a Jacksonville State, a team that's going to be really hyped to be in the NIT, relatively new to the Division I postseason scene in terms of like being able to go to these tournaments. Ortiz, I believe, is a senior, so this is kind of like it's a big deal. It feels like a big deal to that team, and those are the types of teams that I really will look for spots to play, especially in the early rounds of the NIT, when other teams might not be sort of as hyped to be there. And it sounds to me like Bradley might be one of those teams that's just like, they preseason, they were one of the favorites to win the Mountain West, or I'm sorry, the Missouri Valley. They were like top choice to win the Missouri Valley. They get to the conference championship game, fall short. That conference title game was late, or was like last Sunday. So was North Alabama's, but still, I just think Bradley might be coming in saying, you know what, if we do win this game, great. Maybe we'll, put more stock into this tournament. I don't think Bradley's like concern here is necessarily winning this game. Like so much, like not life or death. Like I feel like it is for a team like North Alabama, who's really like excited and happy to be in this tournament. So I played North Alabama plus 4.5 3% play. The only other thing I've played so far on Wednesday. All right, we're going to just rattle down the other 8 here. And if I don't know that I get to the window with anything else. But if I do, I'm going to post them all on Twitter. So the only thing I got for sale today is that 5% play. I just gave you North Alabama plus 4.5, 3%er, and anything else I play in the NIT I'll probably just post on my free picks section of my page at WagerTalk. So first game, I'm going to go right down the list, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we'll go all the way out to the West Coast. This is an interesting one because you've got Dayton at FAU, but Dayton is actually the 1 seed here in their quote-unquote region. As you guys know, Dayton's home arena is in use. That's where the first 4 is played. So Dayton, and I guess they were pretty annoyed about this. I don't know if they maybe thought they could play this game. There's an arena that they use occasionally out in Cincinnati. That's not where the Bearcats play. It's they played Cincinnati earlier this year. You have Wright State down the street. I don't know if like Dayton maybe thought they could use a different facility. So I did hear that they were a little bit annoyed that they got sort of shipped out to go on the road here to the Eleanor Baldwin Arena in Boca Raton, also called the Borough, someplace I just was last week. I saw FAU's social media hyping this up, pack the Ellie. And you know what? It's not that tough to pack that place. 2,900 people is all it fits. So I have a feeling this is going to be like a sellout or close to it for FAU, especially if they get the student involvement. But the thing is, like the way that this building's set up, one entire half is students, and the other half is like general is seating for purchase. So when I was there, it was essentially sold out, except the students just hadn't really come out for that game. And there was still some empty space in the student section. That was a couple weeks ago against North Texas. For this game, I'm pretty sure every seat is just going to be like, whatever. They're probably trying to sell these quickly. So I do think you probably get a full house one way or the other, whether it's locals or students. And, does that make me love FAU? Not really. I lean their direction here. I think that definitely matters. I think that they could be maybe a little bit more excited for this game than Dayton. I haven't been high on either of these teams this year. I talked about it last week. I was in full fade mode of FAU last week, but I was in full fade mode of FAU in their conference tournament as a favorite, right? We took 11 with Charlotte. We took 3.5 with Tulane. In this case, just simply needing FAU to win a game on their home floor against a Dayton team that may or may not want to be there, I got to lean toward FAU there. I doubt this will make my client card, but I certainly think Florida Atlantic is all things considered, I think Florida Atlantic pick is a better bet here than Dayton pick. So to give out a lean here, I'll go Florida Atlantic. Next one, Fairfax, Virginia. Samford at George Mason. Very interesting scenario here because Samford hasn't played in 11 days, and it is well documented that their team has been on spring break. So they got the week off. They were at the beach. A lot of those guys went on spring break, and now they're getting back together, probably had 1 or 2 practices, and they've got to ship up to Fairfax, Virginia to go play a true road game against George Mason. The only problem is George Mason just finished their conference tournament on Sunday. So you can look at that one of 2 ways. One, George Mason, business as usual, turn around, play a game on Wednesday night. But 2, they really maxed out on effort in that game. They had it down to 1. They were right there with a chance to get to the NCAA tournament against VCU on Sunday afternoon. So, 3 or 4 games for them. I can't remember. I think 3 games in 3 days for them. George Washington, St. Joe's, and then VCU. That's a tough stretch of 3 games in 3 days. You have to wonder, like, if they're, do you get like, is there a letdown here for George Mason? Are they like a little bit gassed? I'm going to lean toward no. I still think a home NIT game for a program like George Mason's a pretty big deal. They've had a fantastic season this year. You know what? Like, they're actually one of the teams I think could win this thing. There's a couple teams that I really think have like a legitimate chance to win this thing, and they're going to come up as I talk about the rest of the games. George Mason is one of them. I think George Mason, if they take this tournament seriously, could cap off a historically good season by winning the NIT. I didn't lay the 7.5, but I did not lay the 7.5, but I did think about it long and hard. I think George Mason wins this game. And really, if Samford shows up and they don't really care, they're probably going to get run out of the gym. So George Mason, I lean toward the -7.5. It was not something that I played. Next one up takes us to Philly, UAB at St. Joe's. Interesting one here. I think, UAB, like I heard a couple things with them. I heard Yaxel Lendenborg is going to either enter the portal or go to the NBA or maybe go pro. But I also heard that he's playing here. And the interesting thing here is I guess the players on UAB were the ones that kind of went and said, no, we want to play in this tournament. Andy Kennedy, I believe, was ready to decline the invite. And they said, no, we want to play. And that, you got to love to hear that, right? If the players really want to be out there, because again, this is we want to go and ship up to Philadelphia to play another basketball game, that you have to like from a motivational standpoint. I think I like that enough to lean toward UAB here. The only thing that concerns me is Lendenborg has been battling a little bit of an injury, and what if he says before the game, it's probably not in my best interest to play. Then I don't know that I want to be on UAB on the road. But I will tell you this, my current run, I'm 6-1 in my last 7 games. The one loss was Sunday with UAB in a game that they had a 3-point lead at halftime. They were a 4.5-point underdog. They got a great number in that game, and they went just horrifically cold from the perimeter in the second half. Could not buy a 3. It's the reason Memphis was able to pull away. UAB is not a prolific 3-point shooting team, but they certainly can hit that shot. And if you remember, we played Princeton against St. Joe's against St. Joe's earlier this year, because Princeton sort of lives and dies by the 3. St. Joe's will give you the 3. They sit in the zone for most of the game. So I feel if UAB has a decent shooting night, they just had a horrible shooting day against Memphis. If they come back and shoot it a little bit better here, I kind of think that it's going to be good enough to keep them within the 5.5. So a very slight lean toward UAB, not something that I played, but I do think that is the way I would go if I had to bet this game. All right, we have 5 more games. I have less of an opinion in these 5, so these are going to be quicker, and we'll get you guys out of here. Furman, North Texas. Listen, North Texas is one of the teams I think could win this whole thing. I didn't really want to lay the 8.5, but I have a feeling their defense is going to be really tough on Furman. I've got to see this North Texas team play twice this year in person at High Point and then again at FAU. I felt like I was watching an NCAA tournament team. When they beat FAU at the game I was at, my dad came with me. We kind of both turned to each other. We were like, this is an NCAA tournament team. And I got to be honest, I thought had they made it to the conference championship game in the AAC, they might have been an at-large. They, of course, got beat by UAB. Just, that's kind of the thing with North Texas. If they have an offensive night, they can lose a game like the UAB game. The thing is, though, they defend their tails off. They have a bunch of tough shot makers. I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Furman. I didn't want to lay the 8.5, but I think their defense is going to be really tough on Furman. And I just haven't been overly impressed with Furman this year. I felt like they kind of this was a down year for them. I'm shocked they won as many games as they did. But then again, it wasn't the best year for the SoCon either. So I lean toward North Texas -8.5. This game is at the Super Pit. I think they find a way to win. Just didn't see enough line value to justify laying the 8.5. Kind of the same way I feel about SMU. SMU is another team that I think could win this one. So I got to look. I haven't seen the bracket. I think SMU North Texas might run into each other before the Final Four. But again, the winner of that game, I think ends up winning this. Is right in the mix to win the NIT. SMU was, if they had a couple high profile wins, maybe one more high profile win, this team's probably in the NCAA tournament. I mean, they went 13-7 they went 13-7 in ACC play. So the ACC only got 4 teams in: Duke, Louisville, Clemson, North Carolina. The other 2 teams that were 13-7 were Wake Forest and SMU. SMU was 23-10 this year. And really, they just lacked the high profile win. They just didn't have the really high profile big time win to get them into the NCAA tournament. Then of course they lose the game to Clemson. That was their chance, right? The Clemson game in the ACC tournament, and they lose that game by 3. I think SMU is probably the best team in this field. Like, I think they're the most skilled team in this field. They're 10.5 favorite against Northern Iowa. Again, that number is probably right on. It's tough to make, like, from a number standpoint, like, could Northern Iowa hang within 10? Yeah, of course they probably could, but this is not a Northern Iowa team that panned out to be as good as I expected them to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got slammed here. So those are two really, like, very similar handicap for me. Like, I look at Furman, North Texas. I look at SMU, Northern Iowa. I fully expect both of those favorites to win, but I really don't love either against the number. I think the books have put out a number that's either right on or maybe making you pay a little bit of a premium. So I just sort of decided against playing either of those, but I do lean toward the favorite in both. That will take us out west. So we still have a trio of games here on the West Coast to close out, as I lost my place here, so bear with me. Trio of games on the West Coast to close out the round of 32 for the NIT. And so we'll rapid fire them. So Northern Colorado, Irvine. Northern Colorado, they've gotten better defensively. Like, my big criticism of them during Big Sky play was that they were, like, outside the top 250 nationally in defensive rating. With most analytics sites had them outside the top 250. They've trended down toward 200. So they're right on sort of the fringe of the top 200 now. They've improved a little bit defensively. And, is that enough to keep them in the game here? My gut says yes, but it's like, I tend to get Irvine wrong. I that's a team that if I try to fade Irvine, they're just like lights out. They make everything. If I try to back Irvine, they let teams hang around. So they've been a frustrating team for me the last couple of years. And I got to wonder, like, there was some talk over the course of the year that, like, maybe the Big West gets 2 bids. Of course, UC San Diego getting all the love now. They're the team that gets in. Irvine ends up in the NIT. I don't know. Maybe Irvine's not, like, totally up for this game. Slightly Northern Colorado there. Utah Valley, San Francisco. This one's interesting because Utah Valley lost 1 game all year in their conference. They got to the final against Grand Canyon. They had to feel like they could have beat Grand Canyon. I mean, that was a game they probably felt like they could have or even should have won, and they didn't. I feel like it's San Francisco knew that they were going to have to pull a massive upset over Gonzaga to get to the next round. Or, I'm sorry, to get into the NCAA tournament. It was pretty much like kind of set in stone at that point that they were going to have to beat Gonzaga as like a 14.5-point underdog to get to the NCAA tournament. So, this game being at San Francisco, Utah Valley playing that game on Saturday night out in Vegas. I don't know if I love this spot for Utah Valley. They're certainly skilled. If they come out and everyone plays, they absolutely can hang around with San Francisco, but there was a little bit of line movement toward the Dons, and it made me wonder, like, is someone out for Utah Valley? That wouldn't surprise me either. There's some really good players on that Utah Valley team that very well they will have offers from other schools. So you have to wonder if, a guy like Dominic Nelson is going to, enter the portal. I think Carter Welling was a guy that was in the portal and came from a different school to there. But the thing is, it's like, that's the type of team where I'm going to want to watch them once. I want to make sure that they've got their full complement of players. I'm sure for Toulson, they they want to send him out the right way. I think he's like the senior on that roster. So again, if Utah Valley showed up full strength, I'd be all about him in this spot. Because I don't know what the mentality is of that team right now, I decided to stay away. I kind of wouldn't be that surprised if they just didn't care. It was kind of NCAA tournament or bust after losing 1 conference game all year, and maybe they get blown out. So not much there for me. As far as the last game is concerned, I don't really like Loyola Chicago, but it does seem like San Jose State is quite banged up. So another kind of easy stay away there for me. Even if San Jose State was without a couple guys, do I think Do I want to lay 3.5 with Loyola Chicago? Absolutely not. So again, no huge opinion there on the West Coast games for me. We'll wrap it up. Went a little bit long today, but you know what? We've got 9 NIT games to talk about. Not many people are talking about them. So a little bit longer show. Again, 5% max bet for me at WagerTalk in the NCAA tournament tonight in the first 4. And I also did play North Alabama plus 4.5, 3% play, which I gave out earlier on the show. Hope everyone had a great day. Has a great day. Cash all your tickets tonight. I'll be back with a live show in the morning, question and answer style, right before, early, like mid-morning, to get you guys ready for the NCAA tournament tomorrow. So we'll see you guys tomorrow, and have a great night.